This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Is convinced that each of the 6 accused persons has a case to answer. I hereby put them on defense, ruled Kibelion. The court ruled that it was convinced that the 6 were linked to Odambo's abduction at Manyani area in Nakuru for alleged illegal fishing and trespass into the Lake Nakuru National Park. Their lawyer, Leon Callisto, intends to call at least 4 witnesses. We will seek the court's leave to add more witnesses after consultation with our clients. Following the ruling, Odambo's relatives and human rights activists celebrated with songs of freedom and justice inside and outside the courtroom, concluding, with the national anthem. The mother, Elizabeth Auma, represented by lawyers Mugendi Abuya and Kip Koechingetich, welcomed the ruling, saying that they were hopeful that the case would go their way. Activists Boniface Mwangi, Hussein Khalid and Shiko Kiheka called for justice and demanded that Odambo's body be surrendered to the family by those who abducted him. The family wants to bury the missing fisherman. We want those responsible to release his body even as the court case continues. The defense hearing will begin on June the 8th. We cried in this room and we said, bring back Brian Odambo. Tell us what happened to him. And that it had to go to an inquest for a court to say. And can you imagine if there was no inquest? If these 15 witnesses did not get an opportunity to say, on this January 18th, this is what we saw. We saw this person take this man onto a vehicle and disappear with him. We actually saw him being tortured, being beaten under the cover of daylight. We saw this happen. If this inquest did not demand that these witnesses come forward, we would not be here today. And so such things are covered up. Such a thing would have been covered up. And nobody would have been wiser in terms of what happened to Brian.
You know, it is such a sad place to be as a country, because KWS officers are there to ensure that our parks are safe, right? That even if Brian and crew had broken the law, there is a clear justice system that ought to have been followed. That the officers saw it fit to pick up this man, torture him, kill him, and have him disappear, paints a picture of how Kenyans look at the security installation. We've just from speaking about a beautiful officer that you met, and many others who continue to do an amazing job. But it is such instances that continue to paint the security apparatus negatively. Simply because if it had been left to the security agencies to investigate this matter, because already we've seen that these are individuals who knew how to get away with murder. They knew how exactly to get away with murder. That we would not trust them to investigate the matter and bring one of their own to justice. That it had to go to court for court to listen to different testimonies. That on an ordinary day, these individuals would have gone to police officers and given their testimonies and statements to help investigate the matter, to bring justice to Brian Odambo. But that it had to be the court to listen to these individuals going through the painstaking task of finding out what happened. Tuko mahali pabaya.
Pabaya kabisa.
We must say, judiciary, thank you.
They've done a good job here.
They've done a good job.
To insist on this. I think that it was interesting to me in this particular case that some of the witnesses are folks who were fishing with him either the day prior to this and on the day who gave their testimony. There are some who were picked up with him and they were taken to court and they were then sentenced. I think some have finished the sentence, 7 months, others, I don't know, whatever was happening for this illegal fishing. But they are the ones who gave testimony because they were right there. And they saw that he was then lifeless after some point. And so for them, in their heads, there was no way that he would have survived this, whatever happened. And I think it was interesting that you can actually pull people out of this incarceration to say, what did you see because you were there on the day?
Yes.
How many cases go unnoticed where people, my person just disappeared? I don't know what happened to them. It's been years. How many of those? So this is always proof that these things can happen. And I mean, everybody wants to applaud the magistrate, and I think we should. He was doing his job, is what he's supposed to do. But that you are bold enough to insist that such a thing cannot be allowed is a good thing, especially in the face of when a lot of things are swept under the carpet, that they should tell this family, if there's something like take a leave of the court from the prosecution or of the defense, and that they should come and tell this family where Brian's body is.
Yes.
All these other things that the law, how you killed him, whatever you did, we handle that in court. But tell them where you put his body so that his mother, wife, brothers can bury him.
Get closure.
Yeah. Just even if you need to do it in secret, whatever you need to do, tell them where his body is. It's obvious that in his death, he was in your presence. So tell them where his body is so that he can be buried. And then they deal with you later.
Imagine individuals who are supposed to protect life are the ones taking life.
Yeah.
But you're talking about someone who was killed in the hands of security agencies. It's just a sad place to be. It's just so sad if you just think of it that way. That we can't trust our officers to investigate and do. That we have to go to court for us to get justice. For court to help with the investigation. To Kopabaya. How many more cases do you think have been, like today we're talking about over 60 were killed during the Gen Z protest?
I don't know.
Today, we have that single inquest that is ongoing of Rex Masai. Now imagine about the 60. For individuals who know how to get away with murder.
So this is interesting because I've seen a comment today saying that we are, what I think he said, chronic complainers. So what we're going to do this hour is that we're not going to complain. Even as we wait and see if Dr. Ekuru Aukot will make it here. We're not going to complain. We're going to give you the facts, okay? Because that's what we'll do here. We're going to give you the facts. So that's one story. And Rex Masai's inquest is actually still going on.
Yeah.
And what baffles me is that this man who was in the dock for allegedly shooting Rex Masai to see if there's a case to answer, somewhat like these 6 KWS Rangers, he was shown down to the birthmark on the side of his face. You know how you have a birthmark and you know I have one on the back of my shoulder?
Yeah.
It is me. My mother would be able to identify me by that. You say, you know what? They showed him the picture. He said, can never be me. It's not me. It's not me.
Can you prove?
Prove that it is me.
But so,
it's not me. A man has died.
Yeah.
A man's life has been taken.
There's a family that is grieving.
Absolutely. There's no closure in terms of what happened. And this is just for us to get to the same place that they've gotten to in this case with Brian Odambo. That an inquest is carrying out so that we can hear if there's a case to answer. A life was not lost. It was taken. Right? In a manner in which it ought not to have been. Somebody's got to answer for it. Somebody's got to answer. And gone are those days where you say, oh, well, there was a riot, people died, there were protesters in the street. Let's just let it go. No. You take a life, you answer for it.
You answer for it.
Yeah.
Because then again, you are a police officer, you're trained, right? You know circumstances upon which you're supposed to pull the trigger. The world over, people tell you never shoot at a person who's running away from you because they're not a threat to you. You don't shoot someone at the back. What do you see? What are the images saying? Fine. Me ni sawa. Me I'm a complainant. Yes, I will complain. Me, it's fine. It's fine. But if that is what it will take for us to see sanity on our streets and our roads, complain, I will.
We'll do it.
We will do it.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Come the 8th of June, which is, about 3 months from now, we're going to see that case will come to court. But that Brian Odambo's family should be able to bury him is another thing that should be of utmost importance. On page 11 of the Standard this morning, MCAs adopt Ruto Sakaja deal as fresh impeachment plan looms. Nairobi members of the County Assembly, MCAs, yesterday adopted the cooperation agreement between the national and county governments signed on the 17th of February. The move paves the way for the national government to take over the implementation of key projects in the city, including waste management, which has remained a major challenge since the 2022 general election. However, a section of MCAs led by Deputy Minority Leader Waithera Shege and former Nairobi Mayor Godfrey Majiwa, the MCA for Babadogo, revived plans to impeach Governor Johnson Sakaja. They're saying, okay, this is great. While you guys are adopting this, we actually don't think that he's the man for the job. They had said they had identified 22 grounds for impeachment following failed attempts in 2025. According to Shege, apart from approving the cooperation agreement, we have an agenda to notify the clerk to approve the signatures for impeachment, but he was not available. I don't know, where is he? Where is the clerk not supposed to be in the clerk's office? Anyway. She added, we have already notified the speaker for our intentions, I beg your pardon, and initiated the process of counter-checking the impeachment signatures. So they don't seem to be wanting to let that go. During debate on the agreement, MCAs, through a special committee formed to review the pact, proposed several amendments. Among the recommendations is that once the agreement comes into effect, the steering committee, which is headed by CS Musalia Mudavadi, within 30 days, they should submit to the County Assembly a comprehensive and itemized list of all approved projects to be implemented under the framework. They said this would ensure equitable distribution of projects across the country, the county's 85 wards. So, whereas the MCAs have penned their signature to this agreement and said, okay, within the next 30 days we should get going. So I guess it's not a tomorrow thing. Yeah. It's 30 days later. Some MCAs are saying, okay, yeah, that's great. You can be doing that. But over here, we're thinking that we need to have the governor get gone.
Do you think MCAs have a case in terms of impeaching the man?
Well,
based off the fact that the man was given a certain job to do. He's admitted to Kenyans and told Kenyans and Nairobi residents that I'm unable, I need help from the national government. And MCAs are saying, if that's the case, then we don't need you there.
I don't think it's any different from what Mbadi did yesterday.
Yeah.
By coming out to say that actually, you know what I told you is not the case. Because if I come to you, and one of the things that we heard very often from the governor of Nairobi before his election was that I'm actually going to clean up the city. Yes. It has to work, is what he said. Now, is it too heavy an indictment on him if you say, okay, you said you were going to clean up the city in terms of garbage. You haven't, because the Nairobi is a stinking, filthy mess.
Yeah.
And then what you're going to do is going to hand over the role of that cleanup, because garbage is one of the things that's mentioned on that thing. Did you lie?
You lied.
Did you? Can we simply say it was a lie? And I'm trying to be careful here, but can we say it was a lie? If you said that we're going to clean up the city and that we're going to walk on streets of gold, essentially, in Nairobi, and then 3 years into the thing, Nairobi is a lot dirtier than it was before that, you come and actually have not been able to do it, and then you go beyond that and hand over that role to the national government. Did you lie? Did you lie? Or were you unable to do it?
Because a question would be then, for Monanchi, as someone who lives in Nairobi, the question you'll ask me is, where you live, has the situation in garbage collection improved as promised by the governor during his campaign in 2022? And I will tell you, no. Then the next question would be, does it mean therefore that the governor at the time, right now, lied of what he was going to do? My answer would be yes.
Yeah.
And we have to call things for what they are. The governor has said, I am unable to deliver on my mandate. You get what I mean, dude? You are Spice FM presenter in the morning on the Situation Room, right? What do you need? We need your voice and we need you to come here and talk. In the event that you say, Ndu, mimi, ikuongea, imenishinda. Siwezani nayo. Question is, why are you there?
What am I doing here?
What are you doing there?
Yeah.
Go find something else that you need to do. That happens in corporate world. The same should apply in government.
More so, I think.
It should apply.
More so, because the people have given you something to do. In this case, you've been appointed by the president to do a certain job. If we're looking at a CS position. If you're looking at a governor position, the people have asked you to be in this position to do 1, 2, 3.
Majority of them, for that matter.
Yeah, the majority of them have said, come and do this thing for us, right? You said you could, so do it. So in the event that you are unable to, would it make sense for you to step down? This is a question for Kenyans to actually think about. Think about it, guys. Think about it objectively. Void of emotion, void of that romanticism. Ask yourself the question. If somebody is in a position, and it could be anybody, if somebody is in a position, before you gave them the opportunity, they said they were going to do 1, 2, 3. Now, based on that, you gave them the position.
Yes.
And then in that position, they have been unable to fulfill it. Should they still be there?
No.
Yes.
We live in a country where if a new teacher goes to a school and fails to perform, what will Kenyans do? They will walk into that school and demand that that teacher leaves because they have been unable to deliver. The same should apply in political office.
It should.
It should.
Guess who's here?
Wakili. Habari yako.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
First of all, my apologies. It's not me. Everybody seems to be on the road today. Yeah. Watu nafikiri wameweka mafuta kwa gari, kila mtu ana
Kabla bezi panda.
kabla bei panda. And even the expressway, surprisingly,
There's
there's
traffic.
a lot of traffic. Yeah.
But you see, if expressway is working, but where you're going to join the road is packed, so definitely.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So my apologies. It's not like me to come to a
It isn't.
show.
It isn't.
It is not
Yes,
actually.
yes.
How you doing though?
Very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
So we have some time to go over some of these things.
Yes.
But let's go over today's proverb real
Yes.
quick. I think
Yes.
this one I would be very interested to hear
Yeah.
what you would say about this one.
We
Right.
are in CAR, Central Africa, Central Africa Republic.
Republic,
Yes.
yes.
And the proverb is fairly easy. It's raining outside, eh? The best time to urinate is when it's raining.
The best time to urinate is when it's raining.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I must admit that's a tough one, but I think it probably expresses the view or the feeling that when rain comes is when I don't know. That rain probably is a blessing for many things, including you just
Having the urge.
having the urge to do. I don't know.
Yeah. Could also be fact that when you want to cover stuff, when you're peeing in the rain,
Yes.
the rain will just wash it away.
it away.
So,
Yeah. Like Mbadi's lie.
Trust you not to let that organ go.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we're looking at a number of things this morning.
Right.
I remember during the times of the BBI, and you vehemently said this is a waste of resources, number one. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of political space. Can we just stop this thing and do what the Constitution says? You were very clear on that.
Yes.
Now, we went from BBI, we did something, then we did the NADCO thing where everybody came and said, let's have a national conversation about what ought to happen. And you again said, come on, guys, there's the Constitution. Just do what the Constitution says. Now, after that, people still went and did another thing where they said, okay, you know what? There's conflict in the country. So the only way for this conflict in the country to cease is that these two political parties must come together, and then they come up with something called the 10-point agenda. Number one on that 10-point agenda was this same NADCO report. And they said, in order for there to be peace in the country and to unite people and to have a unified Kenya, let us establish and implement in totality this NADCO report. That's agenda number one. Agenda 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, to be fulfilled, by the way, by Saturday, just in case you are wondering. All these things must be done. Or at least be seen to be done.
Yeah.
Many have said it's a waste of time, it's a waste of political space. These people are just hoodwinking Kenyans. It doesn't mean anything for anybody. And then in the midst of all of this, you find that many things seem to be happening underground. That the sovereignty of Kenyans is actually not being upheld because anybody, it seems, can walk into Nyayo House and get a passport.
Including warlords.
Yeah, that seems to be where we are.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that it's a waste of political space, this NADCO
Yes.
10-point agenda?
Yes, it is. It is a waste of time. Because you see, let's go back to the constitution-making process. You see, Kenyans express their views about the kind of governance that they want, and they put it on paper. Now, we as the committee of experts put that, documented that. Now, there are two aspects of constitution. There is the making of the constitution itself, but there's also the implementation of it. For example, where the letter of the law is not very clear, you go for the spirit. What did the people actually intend when, for example, they brought in issues of accountability under Article 10 of the Constitution, national principles of national governance, devolution and all that responsibility, holding the president accountable, having parliament, having the judiciary and all that. See, all those structures are there. You see, when you go back to the NADCO, you are right. It's a woodwinking the Kenyans. It's a diversionary tactic. Because, for example, if you think about issues to do with corruption, which is, I think, one of the issues that they discussed.
Yes.
All you need to do is pick the Auditor General report And look at Governor X. You said you're going to build a stadium or a hospital or a school. The auditors came to your county, spent 6 months of taxpayers' money, actually asking you questions about this account for this money, account for these projects that you said you're going to implement. You have not done that. The next thing should be DPP. Preferred charges against this particular governor. And one of the things that we tried to bring during the Punguza Mzigo against BBI was to hold governors accountable as the CEOs of the counties, because a lot of them are hiding behind the fact that it is not them. Yet they are the bosses of the county. They're the ones who actually spend this money. So NADCO for me was about political preservation of the so-called kingpins. You remember they had even proposed about 5 positions in those talks. So it was targeting individuals. Say, for example, Kalonzo Musyoka from Ukambani is a kingpin. Somebody from Mount Kenya, I don't know, maybe now Munyoro. The late Raila Amolo Odinga in Nyanza, Luo Nyanza. Mudavadi in Western Kenya. And of course, nobody was thinking about us from the north, whether there's a kingpin or not. So I think it was about political preservation, because what I think you can see the genius of these failed governments, right from Uhuru's government from 2017, I would say, up to now Ruto's 2022. One of the geniuses of these failing governments is to bring on board the noisemakers out there, people who are actually watching over them, who are oversighting them, calling them accountable. That's why, for example, if you saw from William Ruto's political strategy after 2022, the immediate thing that he did was to buy members of the official opposition.
Yes.
Yeah, to bring them on board, because he had a minority. Azimio la Umoja had a majority in parliament. So to kill that accountability, so you buy members of, and of course, all these members of parliament and politicians in Kenya are chattels to be sold. So that's what parliament today has become, an appendage of the executive. So the NADCO report, I'll repeat, is a waste of Kenya's time. We have enough structures. For example, one of the top agendas in the NADCO report is the management of the election. They are not telling us exactly what is the problem with the election. What went wrong. When they keep on telling us, let's go and audit the 2022 election. What happened with that election? They are not telling us what went wrong with that election.
Okay. I just want, when I look at it, maybe in a simplistic manner, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. As a person who drafted this constitution, you were a committee of experts in this constitution, right? Everything that you're talking about, be it corruption, the constitution addresses itself towards that. When you talk about the sanctity of elections, the constitution addresses itself towards that. If it's about graft, the role of the president, the role of a governor, everything is in the constitution. That today, as Kenyans, all we need to do is to implement the constitution and follow it to the latter.
Absolutely.
All these other games we're seeing on the side are not needed. It's just a delay tactic for political players to continue doing their things.
It is. And you see, I think let's go back to the fundamentals. Let's start with Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya. It talks about sovereignty, authority and power that vests in the people to exercise it directly or indirectly through the elected representatives. Now, that brings in the question of an employer and employee. So the people of Kenya are actually the employers of the political class. They are giving you the job. They are even paying you to do that job. But what has manifested over the years is that the political class is actually not doing their job. The leadership in this country is collapsed. So that, and I think if today people have been asking me if I can bring back the Punguza Mzigo Constitution Amendment Bill, and one of the things that I will include afresh is to amend Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya, so that Kenyans can be able to fire a failing government, a failing president. Because that was not just in jest that you say power vests or sovereign authority vests in the people to exercise directly. Now, what we did not clarify, in the constitution, in the letter of the law, is how do Kenyans exercise that thing directly?
Exactly.
But Article 257 cures that on a popular initiative, where Kenyans now can actually go to collective signatures, a minimum of 1 million signatures, and therefore hold a referendum. But we need to tie it together with Article 1 so that if it, for example, a government that is failing and a president that is failing, then the people should be able, through a referendum, fire that government.
But there needs to be a shepherd of that process.
Yes.
And who essentially is the shepherd of this process?
Yeah, so the other thing that is failing, and you are right, there are mechanisms, for example, even in the constitution, on impeachment of a government or a president. But then when you have a lazy parliament whose business is just about to strike deals with the executive, who are being bought by the executive, then they fail in their cardinal roles of representation, legislation, and oversight in government, which means actually failing the people. And that's why we came up with Article 100 on recall clause. That if a member of parliament your member of parliament is failing, you can actually recall that. But what did the parliamentarians do? The first thing they did, they killed that article by passing a legislation that made it almost impossible. The same thing that happened to Chapter 6, national leadership and integrity. If you bring disrepute to the office you are holding. For example, today, President William Ruto should not be the president of this country. How can you fraternize with a warmonger, a warlord, who is killing women, children, even giving his family, our Kenyan passport? It is a joke of the 21st century that Ahmed and his family are all sanctioned. So even if you give them a Kenyan passport, you are not sanitizing them. These are people who are caged. Kenya is actually becoming a criminal enterprise because we are aiding and abetting murders, genocide, crimes against humanity that is committed in the Sudan. And therefore, it brings to the fore again our foreign policy. What is our foreign policy? So if you look in terms of responsibility, actually, the spotlight now should be shone on Mudavadi. Our foreign policy. How did we end up really fraternizing with a person like Emedi and his people? Then we go down now to the Ministry of Interior, who are actually responsible for matters immigration. Then we go to the Department of Immigration itself. Cheluget should be able to give us a response. The DG, Immigration, should be able to tell Kenyans, how is it that these people ended up getting our passports?
I'm going to ask a dumb question.
Yes.
Is it possible that these individuals that you've mentioned didn't know that Hemeti's brother, son, had a Kenyan passport, and maybe it was an underground deal somewhere, and that somebody got the dollars for it, and they gave him a passport? Is it possible?
No.
You know why I'm asking that question? Just look at the thread. CS Mbadi tells us that it's some junior staffers there who may have messed up here, and that he wasn't aware that, the time had lapsed between the registration of the name of the company and something else. You see what I'm saying? So is it possible that somebody somewhere who was in the system collected some dollars, said, we can do a passport? I mean, they're the ones who do it anyway. Dr. Aukot.
Listen,
is it
the junior staff may prepare the documentation, but the people who put the signature at the last are those people, the DG and the people, the approval from, Interior and all that. But I will tell you this, what people do not are fearing to say. This must have been a phone call from State House. Issue those people a passport. After all, wasn't that warlord received in our State House?
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Gachagua himself, Rigiji, has openly said that he was actually asked to go and receive him and to escort him to State House. So, listen, this is not rocket science. The phone call must have come from State House and in the person of President William Ruto himself to say that, issue those guys the passport.
For what?
So let's not blame the small people.
What would be...
And that's why I was saying it's laughable, because even if you issue them a Kenyan passport, even if you give them a British passport or American passport, you are still not sanitizing them. The facts are out there. This is a warlord. This is a warmonger. This is a genocide. So, you are not sanitizing it. It ridicules us as a republic, as a country, as a nation state, that our laws, actually anybody can come into our country and just do as they wish. Just the same way, we know. People may be afraid to say this. We know that refugees from Somalia are being issued with national ID cards and they're being registered to vote. And the reason they're being given ID cards is so that they can vote for William Ruto. And I was in Wajir during the Parcel Leadership Summit in November. And the song and praise from all the members of parliament from that northeastern province was that President William Ruto, don't worry, we will give you 99%. They were speaking with so much confidence that we are giving you 99% of our vote.
Well, we saw some of it.
Yeah.
We saw some of it.
Exactly. And so it is not surprising, no, I don't know why you are surprised, that, you're asking that question. Because obviously this is just political machination. It's about political survival of this failing government.
But okay, with what the document passport means to Kenyans, I mean, today, if I want to get your details on how you got this passport, it is clearly documented, right? That today, if it's investigations that you need to know how whoever also got to the system to give out this passport, we can easily do that because it is a documented process. You go through everything. That today we're able to say it is so and so who did this, and they need to go to court. But that notwithstanding, with where we find ourselves as a country today, how is the world looking at Kenya?
Well, we are actually a laughingstock. Remember, let's go back to 2013 general election. And I remember I was working out of the country at that time. And one of the things that people were asking, and I travel around the region speaking about the constitution-making process in Kenya. And one of the things that people really praise Kenya for is Chapter 6.
Yes.
The fact that we wanted a certain type and character of leadership.
Yeah.
But the question that I've never been able to answer, which I was always being asked in any forum I went, how is it that then you guys elected 2 ICC suspects?
Oh.
Yes, that question has been asked so many times.
Why?
You need to go back to the psyche of the national Kenyan people. Why is it that Kenyan people have not even internalized their own aspiration as a people in the constitution to say this is the people? People are not interrogating the character of these leaders. And therefore, to your question, of course, it has really devalued the passport of Kenya. Our passport is now under scrutiny. With this story now going out, like now, I'm sure many countries now will not easily admit Kenyans. You'll be more scrutinized. And I think, and I don't know whether you guys have been following this, the Schengen countries in Europe have had a policy change on issuance of passport, the Schengen visa, to Kenyans. It's become so difficult to go to the Schengen countries. And partly that is because now there's a lot of suspicion about who is the holder of a Kenyan passport. And the blame really must go to the government of the day and the people issuing this passport. Because for me to apply for a passport in Kenya, I must have an account called e-citizen account.
Yes.
And the e-citizen account, I must put in my ID, my national ID. If you're a foreigner, you have to have the EFNS.
EFNS, yes.
Yeah? Now, and for EFNS, ideally you must be resident in Kenya.
Yes.
So these people are not even resident in Kenya.
So how do they get it?
It is corruption.
Yeah.
It's obviously corruption.
Yeah.
And money must have passed hands. And somebody must have made a phone call, and I'm not afraid to say the phone call came from State House. Issue them. Because these are friends of the president. They're doing business with the president, gold business with the president. I mean, it's in the open. It's not like we're talking behind the president's back. So at the end of the day, he must take responsibility for this. And therefore, that really ridicules our country.
It's interesting because I think since the time that there was the handshake, the visit of Hemedti to State House last year, and then after that, where RSF was supposed to have named a parallel government in Nairobi, and there was a surprise because the government of Sudan said, what are you talking about? You brokered this deal. How then do you then come and shake hands with one side and we are not aware what exactly might be going on here? So those diplomatic conversations were happening at the time, but we've not once yet heard the president speak about this particular issue. Why would that be?
You can't speak
that you wouldn't say something about it, or even put the hearts of Kenyans or the region to rest?
You can't speak because the president is an accomplice. He's compromised because he is the one who invited. Because Hemedti will not have come to Kenya without the invitation of the government and without the invitation of the president of Kenya. So the president is complicit. So he cannot speak. He's as guilty as charged. It's as simple as that. And Rigiji has openly spoken about it, being an insider. So, this is really making Kenya look very bad. I mean, for some of us who have got friends out of the country and we speak on matters governance and politics, I mean, there's a lot of questions about the state of Kenya right now. And of course, the Western world will always prey on weak political leadership in Africa and in Kenya. For so long as they can actually use a weak political leadership in a country to advance their interests, for them there is nothing called friendship. And I keep on reminding people of Ronald Reagan when he said that America has no friends. America only pursues interests.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So nobody cares about whether you put a dog or a cow in charge of your country, so long as their interests are advanced. That's what matters to them, you know. And unfortunately, we found ourselves in a position where the world knows that, for example, even the case against William Ruto was declared a mistrial in the ICC, meaning it's not ended. But they will still fraternize with him because they want their interest. I don't know how true this story is. I was reading the other day a story about Nakuru being sold to the Israelis. Did you guys come across that?
Well, it's said that there's a piece of land which somebody wants to use for farming, you know, and that's...
Yeah, but the story was that Nakuru has been sold. I mean, how do you sell an entire county? But again, you see, those are the things that make Kenya look very ridiculous in the eyes of the international community. How is it that a country like Kenya, so strategic, so many, I mean, when I travel around the continent and even elsewhere in the world, you know, people really love our country.
Yeah.
They admire Kenya. They think Kenya is one of the best countries in Africa. In fact, even when you follow social media feeds, people say Kenya is the capital of Africa, you know. And it's not in jest. It's because I think of the potential that this country has. But the unfortunate thing is that we really have a lackluster leadership, political leadership, right from the very top. To the people's representatives, unfortunately.
Ekuru, how difficult is it for people to just do their job? Why? Because you are a cabinet secretary in charge of immigration. Your job is to ensure that each and every single person who gets Kenyan documentation gets it within the law. How difficult is it for the president to sit and look at Hemeti and allegations against him and say, as a president of the Republic of Kenya, I will not involve myself in these matters, that I have a country to lead and I will not make my country be a joke for the world. How difficult is it for one to say, I will respect the law? Because even there's a listener here who's asking, is the president above the law, that he would go around and fraternize with warlords, give them Kenyan passports, and that is okay?
No, first of all, the president is not above the law, and that's why there are provisions in the Constitution for his removal in terms of impeachment or a vote of no confidence in him. So he's not above the law. That's why Parliament can oversight presidential appointments and even reject some of them. I think there is instances when they have rejected 1 or 2 appointments. So he's not above the law. But to your question, the fundamental question, you know, the love of your country and some self-worth or self-love in yourself should dictate how you actually govern your country. And I'll give the example of somebody like Lee Kuan Yew, when people have said he was once a dictator. I know people say it's a tired narrative, but today people go to Singapore to actually benchmark, because Lee Kuan Yew really embraced who he was as a leader, and he wanted to take his people to a certain level of comfort, of development. Stories, I mean, the narratives show that Singapore was just a fishing village. And what Lee Kuan Yew did is he embraced the multi-ethnic people of Singapore, be they Malay, Indians, Chinese, you know, Singaporeans. Remember, there's even a tribe called Singaporeans. But he brought all these people, and he put his, you know, he put his foot on the ground and say he will not tolerate certain things, like, for example, you know, incompetence. You know, meritocracy is something that he really insisted on. So he appointed people, but he was the prefect. He said, should you fail in your job, I will jail you even if you're my family member. You know, and he said that. So what is lacking in us is that we have got a lackluster, a very self-aggrandizement from leaders who just think that the country, actually we have narcissists in leadership. who think that the world just revolves around them, or the country revolves around them. You know, and so for them, they don't really care. These are just nasty people who have been given the opportunity, but instead of actually uplifting the lives of the people, they're actually just exploiting them. That's why you'll see all these scandals. You bring in someone like Adani, a criminal who has been indicted with 37, I don't know, counts in the US to do a job in Kenya. I mean, you're ridiculing us. So Kenya, I think, has had the misfortune of electing really bad leaders. But again, whereas we may not 100% blame these leaders,
yes,
yeah, but we must also now blame ourselves as Kenyans. When we exercise that choice, what informs us to actually elect so and so to be our leader? It's also incumbent on us as a people. You know, and unfortunately, Kenya's political leadership has been commercialized. It's about money. How much money do you have? How much money? So, for example, to attend rallies. Yeah. You know, I followed the Mbeere North by-election.
Yeah.
You know, can you imagine the governor was giving people sweets?
Yeah.
You know, and people giving 50 bob. I think in Kakamega, I saw Haibu Savula giving people 50 bob to attend a rally. So really, and even, for example, when you listen, for example, to all these political formations or these breakouts from these political parties, listen keenly. What message are they actually expressing? Even if they are opposed to William Ruto, even when as they say one term, which of course I support, but what is the message that comes with this one term? And those who say two term, what message are they saying? What is the justification for a two term in light of all the problems that people are going through in this country? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but us, probably because we had expressed interest in leadership, our phones don't stop ringing. The WhatsApp, the SMSs. People ask you, please send me 200 bob so I can buy my kids food. They slept hungry yesterday. That is the situation on the ground. So when we talk about the state of the nation, it's important we go micro and talk about the state of the person. That Kenyan. Hospital bills, schools. I mean, just the other day, a parent called me and told me, okay, please just give me transport. My kids have to go to school. So I asked him, okay, if your kids just need transport to go to school, what if they are chased back because you have not paid school fees? How are you going to handle that? That is what Kenyans are going through. Every parent in this country.
That's the reality.
That's the reality. Unemployment. I don't know whether you listen. I follow Bunge la Wananchi very closely. And I listen to what those young people speak about. They speak from the bottom of their, from their realpolitik, from the existential location, that this is exactly what we are going through. And that is the state of the nation of Kenya, the state of the person, of the Kenyan national.
So I think about subjects that we studied when we were, in school, and the aspect of inertia, where you take that energy and it is then propelled and used for something else. And when you talk then about previously constitutionally, how then people will take this responsibility that they have, combine it with this energy, whether it's positive or negative, whereby the frustration that people feel when they can't send their children to school, where they can't do certain things, where they can't survive. How do you combine that with the knowledge of what you must do as an individual with this obvious frustration that you have, combine the two and move this energy into ensuring that in the next time you have an opportunity to make a decision, you make the decision for the person who is actually going to do the job?
You know, what the system has done over many decades since independence, remember the promises of at independence of eradicating poverty, disease, and ignorance. It appears to me that today there's too much ignorance because a lot of people are not able to go to school. And if you go to school, you are not able to get a job, which means poverty kicks in. And of course, also diseases kick in because you're not able to afford, for example, hospitals and all that, because you're not able to generate any income. So what the system has done over the period of time, especially these so-called dynastic claims in Kenya, these fake dynasties, and of course now their surrogates are in charge of the leadership of the country. They have created a situation of desperation, where they hold you in that state where you are desperate. You remember the story of the house and the field Negro, where the house Negro thinks that he's better
because he's in the house.
Because he's in the house. And the field Negro is the one like actually toiling. So you maintain that state of affairs where people are become so vulnerable are not able to even think outside. So it becomes a question of survival. The person who gives you crumbs, throws a piece of bread to you, you adore that person, you worship that person. That's exactly what is happening in our state today in Kenya with the political leadership. The political leadership does not want to economically empower the people. Like I've argued many times, if you travel around our counties, there are great economic opportunities in every county in Kenya. All you need to do is industrialize those economic opportunities, and you give people just put money into their pocket. Like it's not a joke for me. I like saying I'm from Turkana. We have got the largest desert lake in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
270 kilometers long, 50 kilometers wide. I mean, a lot of fish that die out of old age because nobody is fishing there. So imagine if you industrialize just the fishing industry and do value addition. If you, for example, industrialize just meat production in the pastoralist nomadic areas of Kenya, do value addition. We don't need to go buy shoes in China. We don't need to buy belts in China or wallets, handbags. This will be an industry. If you're into industrial gold mining in Migori, in Kakamega, and other parts, Tiomin mining in Kwale, we have everything. In this country, we are actually very blessed. But when you have got a leadership that is just thinking about itself, it's about how much money. That's why you can see, you have leaders who, for example, lived somewhere in, I don't want to demean any estate, yeah? Because
but we get it.
They say it themselves, yeah.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, you are parachuted. You find yourself, I don't know, in Karen, Loresho, Lavingtons, those leafy suburbs. And you wonder, okay, how did you...
What happened here?
What happened? Where is the magic? How did you make money when members of parliament themselves keep on saying our pay slip is always reduced because of the loans they take? You are driving a Toyota Corolla today, and the following day we are seeing you with a V8 engine car. Where is the money coming from?
What mystery is that?
What mystery is that? So, leadership in this country is about self-gain. It's not about service to the people. And that's unfortunately why we're missing most of these things. That's why they're concocting all these issues, the NADCO reports, just to accommodate themselves. Yeah.
Those are the questions we must ask. And, even if our time was short, it was, I think, necessary for us to be aware, opening up eyes and insights towards some of these things. The choices that you make matter in terms of what will happen later.
And I'm really hoping and I'm really praying that, and I've been saying this many times, guys, I think William Ruto's presidency is actually a blessing in disguise for Kenya. In my view, it ought to be an awakening call. Because this is one person who said, I will lead a government of hustlers. I will look at you, the person of the wheelbarrow, the Mutua Mjengo, the Mama Mboga. You see, that narrative has now died. Because once he got into power, he forgot about those people that actually put him into power.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that now Kenyans, and this is the challenge I think we must throw back to Kenyans, have you learned anything from this presidency?
How not to vote?
And are you, and you see, we made a mistake. Let's admit, we made a mistake in 2022. But do you want to repeat the same mistake in 2027? Swala nyeti.
That's a question.
Nyeti sana.
At 8:01, Dr. Ekuru Aukot is the party leader of the Third Way Alliance. Has been our guest this hour. Thank you.
My apologies again for coming late.
We're glad that you came all the same. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon. Good morning at 8:01.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.